There are moments in an actor's career when a drama feels like more than just another project. It becomes a turning point, a mirror reflecting everything that has happened before and everything that might come afterward. For Zhang, the impact of a drama can never be measured simply by ratings, trending searches, fan edits, or the number of times his name appears across social media. Behind every role is a choice, behind every choice is a risk, and behind every risk is the possibility that an actor could either move closer to the career he dreams of or become trapped inside an image audiences have already decided belongs to him. That is what makes the conversation surrounding Overdo so fascinating in 2026. Did this drama truly strengthen Zhang Linghe's position and give him another powerful step forward, or did it create unexpected challenges that could influence the direction of his future? The answer is not as simple as success or failure, because an actor's career is rarely changed by one project alone. Sometimes a drama that appears controversial can create enormous attention. Sometimes a project that divides viewers can reveal an actor's range. Sometimes a role that seems difficult in the moment becomes the very experience that prepares someone for a much greater opportunity later. And sometimes the most dangerous career moment is not failure at all, but being praised for exactly the same thing over and over until nobody remembers what else you can do. That question becomes especially compelling when looking at Zhang, an actor whose career has increasingly been shaped by expectations. Once audiences become emotionally attached to an actor, every new role arrives carrying an invisible burden. People remember the characters that made them fall in love with his performances. They remember the expressions, the emotional intensity, the chemistry, the quiet moments, the dramatic scenes, and even the smallest gestures that became part of an actor's public image. Then another drama arrives, and suddenly the audience is not watching a completely new character. They are comparing. They are asking whether this performance feels bigger, deeper, fresher, more mature, or simply different. That comparison can be both a blessing and a trap. A successful actor receives more attention, but with greater attention comes greater scrutiny. Every choice becomes a discussion. Every weakness becomes magnified. Every unusual decision becomes a debate about whether the actor is taking a brave artistic risk or making a mistake. This is where Overdo becomes interesting as a career question. Whatever one thinks about the drama itself, its greatest potential impact may not be immediately visible. The real impact could be found in what it changes about the way Zhang is viewed from this point forward. Imagine the atmosphere surrounding an actor when a major project arrives. There is excitement, anticipation, promotional material, photographs, discussions, predictions, and countless opinions forming before the story has even had the chance to breathe. Fans begin wondering what kind of performance they will receive. Casual viewers decide whether the project looks interesting enough to watch. Industry observers may look at the role from a completely different perspective, asking whether it demonstrates growth or simply repeats an established formula. And somewhere in the middle of all that noise is the actor himself, carrying the character onto the screen and hoping that audiences will understand what he was trying to create. That emotional distance between intention and reception can be enormous. An actor may believe that a difficult role represents growth, while viewers may interpret the same performance differently. A scene designed to communicate restraint may be described as lacking emotion. A character designed to be complicated may be called confusing. A deliberate change in acting style may be interpreted as inconsistency. None of this automatically means the performance failed. It simply reveals how unpredictable the journey can be once a performance leaves the actor's hands and enters the imagination of millions of people. For Zhang, that uncertainty may be particularly important because the next stage of his career depends not only on popularity but on versatility. Popularity can open a door, but versatility can determine how many doors remain open afterward. An actor who becomes associated with one particular type of character may enjoy enormous success for a period of time, yet eventually face the challenge of proving that the audience can believe him in something completely different. This is why a drama like Overdo can become a fascinating test. If the role pushes him outside familiar territory, then even criticism could carry a hidden value. It could show that he is willing to experiment rather than simply repeating what already works. If the character demands emotional control, darker shades, unusual behavior, or a different rhythm of performance, then the project could become evidence that Zhang is searching for a broader artistic identity. But if audiences feel that the role does not suit him, the challenge becomes more complicated. The question would no longer be whether he can attract attention, but whether the choices surrounding the project are helping him build the kind of long-term career he wants. There is also another side to the story that is often overlooked. A drama does not exist in isolation. It becomes part of an actor's professional history. Years later, people may look backward and recognize that a particular project was a stepping stone rather than a final destination. Careers are filled with roles that were misunderstood at the time but became meaningful in retrospect. There are performances that did not immediately receive universal praise yet helped actors develop new techniques. There are projects that introduced performers to audiences who later followed them into completely different genres. There are also roles that teach an actor what not to do, which can be just as valuable as discovering what works. If Overdo becomes one of those experiences for Zhang, then its value may not be determined entirely by immediate reactions. Its deeper significance could appear later, when audiences see him take on another demanding character and realize that something about his approach has changed. And then comes the most emotionally complicated question: what happens when expectations become enormous? Success creates a strange kind of pressure because yesterday's achievement becomes tomorrow's standard. Once audiences have seen an actor deliver a memorable performance, they may expect every future role to recreate that emotional experience. But acting does not work like that. Characters are different, stories are different, directors are different. The emotional language of one drama may be completely opposite to another. An actor who tries to satisfy every expectation may eventually lose the freedom to experiment. This is why career growth sometimes looks confusing from the outside. The actor may appear to be moving away from the formula that made him popular, but that movement could actually be an attempt to avoid becoming predictable. Zhang Linghe's future will depend partly on whether he can balance those two forces, giving audiences the qualities they already love while continuing to develop qualities they have not yet seen. The title of this conversation carries a particularly powerful word: impact. Impact is not the same thing as popularity. A popular drama can have enormous attention and surprisingly little long-term influence on an actor's career. Meanwhile, a challenging project can generate debate, mixed reactions, or uncertainty while quietly expanding the actor's range. Impact is about what remains after the excitement fades. Does the actor receive more interesting opportunities? Does the audience begin to see additional dimensions in his performance? Does the industry recognize greater flexibility? Does the actor become more confident in choosing difficult characters? Does the project change the kinds of stories people imagine him letting? These questions are much more important than simply asking whether everyone loved the drama. There is another possibility that makes the entire discussion even more intriguing. Perhaps Overdo does not need to be universally loved to benefit Zhang. In fact, a project that creates conversation can sometimes keep an actor in the public consciousness longer than a project that disappears quietly. Viewers debate the story. Fans defend performances. Critics analyze choices. People compare scenes. Social media fills with reactions. Even disagreement can create visibility, although visibility alone should never be mistaken for artistic success. The real question is what people are discussing when they talk about Zhang. Are they talking only about his appearance and popularity, or are they beginning to talk more seriously about his acting choices, emotional control, character interpretation, and ability to carry complicated material? That difference matters enormously for an actor trying to establish a career that lasts beyond temporary trends. At the same time, there is a legitimate concern that every actor must face when a project receives mixed reactions. If viewers become attached to one particular image, any departure from that image can feel uncomfortable. They may ask why the actor changed his style. They may say the older version felt more natural. They may compare every new character to previous favorites. This can create a strange emotional contradiction. Fans want growth, but growth can mean change. They want the actor to surprise them, but they may also want the familiar qualities that made them fans in the first place. For Zhang, navigating that contradiction could be one of the most important challenges of the next few years. The safest career choice is not always the most interesting one, and the most daring choice is not always the most successful one. The art lies somewhere between those extremes. Perhaps that is why the emotional response to Overdo matters beyond statistics. An actor can appear successful on paper and still feel uncertain about whether he is moving in the right direction. Behind the polished images and public appearances is a professional trying to understand which roles deserve his energy and which opportunities can take him somewhere new. Every performance contains a little vulnerability because an actor is asking strangers to believe in a person who does not exist outside the story. When audiences reject that character, misunderstand that character, or simply fail to connect with the performance, the response can feel deeply personal even though the criticism is about a fictional role. When audiences connect, however, that connection can become one of the most rewarding experiences an actor can have. Zhang Linghe's future therefore cannot realistically be predicted from one drama. It will be shaped by the accumulation of choices that come afterward. What roles does he accept? What genres does he explore? Does he choose characters that challenge his emotional range? Does he work with different creative teams? Does he continue developing the quieter aspects of performance rather than relying only on dramatic moments? Does he allow himself to make choices that may not immediately satisfy everyone? These are the questions that could determine whether Overdo becomes remembered as a peak, a warning, a transition, or simply one important chapter in a much longer story. And perhaps the most fascinating possibility is that the drama could end up being both a help and a challenge at the same time. A project can strengthen an actor's visibility while exposing weaknesses. It can attract new viewers while dividing existing fans. It can prove that an actor is willing to take risks while also demonstrating how difficult those risks can be. It can create pressure while giving the actor the experience needed to handle greater pressure later. Careers are rarely clean stories where one project is good and another is bad. They are complicated journeys built from successes, disappointments, unexpected opportunities, difficult decisions, and moments of uncertainty that eventually become part of an actor's identity. For Zhang Ling, that complexity may be exactly what makes this moment so important. The question is not simply whether Overdo helped or hurt him. The deeper question is whether the experience moved him forward. Did it encourage him to become more fearless? Did it expose areas where he can continue improving? Did it challenge the expectations surrounding him? Did it make audiences curious about what he might do next? Curiosity may be one of the most valuable things an actor can possess. When people finish one project and immediately wonder what kind of character he will choose next, the journey continues. The story does not end with the final episode. It moves into the next announcement, the next script, the next set, the next character waiting to be discovered. There is something almost poetic about that uncertainty. An actor's career is built in public, but the most important growth often happens privately. Viewers see the finished performance. They do not see every rehearsal, every adjustment, every difficult scene that required a different emotional approach, every moment when an actor questioned whether a choice was working. They see a few hours of finished storytelling, while the actor carries the entire process with him. That is why judging a career by one project can be misleading. Overdo may be remembered differently years from now than it is remembered today. A role that currently divides opinions could later become evidence of an important transition. Or perhaps it will simply remain a fascinating experiment that helped Zhang Ling understand which direction he wants to pursue. The entertainment industry is constantly changing, and so are audiences. What works today may not work tomorrow. The character types that once dominated may eventually feel repetitive. Viewers become more demanding. Expectations rise. Actors who want longevity must keep evolving without losing the qualities that made people care about them in the beginning. That balance is difficult, but it is also where meaningful careers are created. Zhang Linghe's challenge is not to become a completely different person every time he appears on screen. It is to reveal new dimensions of the performer audiences already know. So when people ask whether Overdo truly helped or hurt Zhang Linghe's future, perhaps the most honest answer is that the verdict is still being written. A career cannot be judged from a single moment because the meaning of a moment changes as the journey continues. What looks like a setback can become preparation. What looks like a triumph can create new pressure. What looks like a risky decision can eventually become the choice that separates an actor from everyone else. The real test will come with what happens next. Maybe years from now, viewers will look back at this period and recognize something they could not see clearly in the middle of all the noise. Maybe Overdo will be remembered as the project that challenged Zhang Ling to step outside familiar expectations. Maybe it will be remembered as the moment audiences began demanding more from him because they believed he was capable of more. Maybe it will simply become one piece of a much larger artistic evolution. And perhaps that is not a weakness of the story but its greatest strength. The future of an actor should never feel completely predictable. Because the most exciting careers are not built by staying exactly where the audience expects you to stay. They are built by taking the next step even when nobody can guarantee where that step will lead. Zhang Ling has reached a point where every new role carries more weight than the one before it, and that weight can either become a burden or become fuel. Overdo may have brought questions, expectations, praise, criticism, curiosity, and uncertainty, but those emotions are all signs that the project matters in the larger conversation surrounding his career. What matters now is what he chooses to do with everything it has given him. And perhaps that is where the real story begins. Not with whether the drama was perfect, not with whether every viewer agreed, and not with whether every expectation was satisfied, but with the possibility that an actor can walk through uncertainty and emerge with a clearer understanding of who he wants to become. Zhang Linghe's future will not be decided by one title, one role, one performance, or one wave of public reaction. It will be built through the choices that follow. If Overdo gave him greater visibility, new challenges, valuable experience, or even difficult lessons, then it has already become part of that future. Whether history remembers it as a major breakthrough or a complicated detour will depend on everything that comes after it. And that is what makes the question so compelling. Did Overdo help Zhang Ling? Perhaps. Did it hurt him? Perhaps there were challenges. But could it ultimately become something even more valuable than either answer suggests? A turning point, a test, a lesson, a reminder that growth is rarely comfortable and that an actor's greatest chapter may come immediately after the moment when everyone is still debating whether he made the right choice. The next role, the next character, and the next performance will reveal more than any argument ever could. Until then, the uncertainty remains, and sometimes uncertainty is where the most fascinating stories begin.